How did George Washington balance finding compromise with standing his ground? This is the Daily Word of Washington, Episode 8. Today's quote comes from a response Washington sent to the House of Representatives regarding Jay's Treaty on March 30th, 1796. Work on the treaty had begun 2 years earlier in an effort to resolve lingering issues with Great Britain. Some key issues of the treaty included British occupation of forts in American territory, mutual debts, British capture of American vessels and sailors, securing trading status with each other, clarifying the Canadian border, and the rights of Native Americans to freely travel through both the United States and Canada. In negotiating this treaty, John Jay was able to secure all the provisions deemed indispensable, but little beyond that. Many southern states wanted recompense for their slaves who were freed by the British Army during the war, and Jay, who opposed slavery despite owning slaves, dropped that point from the negotiations. This treaty was not popular in the United States, particularly among the Democratic Republicans. In 1795, the treaty was ratified by the absolute minimum necessary vote in the Senate, and then signed by Washington, which meant that it was legally binding. When it came time to implement the treaty, however, funds needed to be appropriated by the House of Representatives to fulfill its terms. They resisted doing so for some time, and at one point requested that all papers related to the signing of the treaty be turned over to the House for examination. Washington denied this request, explaining that the treaty had been made according to the process outlined in the Constitution. He further outlined some of the debates that had taken place at the Constitutional Convention regarding the separation of powers and how treaties would be handled. He said, "It is a fact declared by the General Convention and universally understood that the Constitution of the United States was the result of a spirit of amity and mutual concession. And it is well known that under this influence, the smaller states were admitted to an equal representation in the Senate with the larger states, and that this branch of the government was invested with great powers, for on the equal participation of those powers, the sovereignty and political safety of the smaller states were deemed essentially to depend. It was due to that concession and compromise that the President was granted the power of treaty making, to ensure that they were handled quickly, and that treaties would be agreed upon by a two-thirds supermajority in the Senate, so that small states and minority opinions would not be entirely disregarded. It was, according to the constitutional compromise, not necessary for the House to approve the treaty, and so Washington stood his ground on the results of that compromise and emphatically turned down the request. James Madison, who was a Democratic-Republican representative and opposed the treaty, found his own words from the Constitutional Convention turned against himself, and this ultimately ended his friendship with the President. The House eventually agreed to fund the treaty's provisions following a tiebreaker vote, though the tie-breaking voter was stabbed by his brother for doing so. For Washington's full response to the House, be sure to check out Part 2.